Hello, dear listener. I'm going to tell you a story based on real history to help you drift off. It's first time I'm doing this. Usually I'm listening stories myself. But this time, I want to try to make it my own. You are welcome to let go and drift off to sleep at any time. Tonight's story is about a pearl diver in the Persian Gulf. A man whose entire life was a breathless plunge into the deep, weighed down not by stone, but by the invisible chains of debt, all for the fleeting hope of finding a single pearl that could buy back his soul. And believe it or not, this is how things really were for people. Around the same time this was happening in the 1880s, folks back in the United States were watching the Wild West era come to an end, buzzing about the brand new Statue of Liberty arriving in New York's harbor, and seeing the very first electric lights flicker on. But for you, there are no electric lights. Your story begins here, in a small village of sand-colored huts, where the food has run out. This is the time of hunger that forges the invisible chains, as you prepare to visit the boat's captain for the seasonal loan that ensures both your family's survival and your own servitude. The captain sits in the shade of his larger home, a ledger book resting beside him. This book is more powerful than any law. It holds the names of your father and his father before him. When you are granted the loan, enough rice, dates, and cloth to keep your family from starving, a new entry is made under your name. There is no interest rate discussed, no repayment plan outlined. The terms are simple and unspoken. You will work on his dhow for the entire 6-month season, and the pearls you find will be his until your debt is settled. This is where the trap closes. Once at sea, the captain is your only source of provision. The water you drink, the food you eat, the tools you might need, all are provided by him, and each item is added to your debt in his ledger at a price he alone determines. The system is designed for you to fail. It is a world with only one banker, one employer, and one buyer, and they are all the same man. Your work is to dive, to fill your woven basket with as many oysters as your burning lungs will allow. At the end of the long, exhausting day, you and the other divers present your catch. The captain examines the pearls. He decides their worth. A small, misshapen pearl might be worth a handful of dates. A decent one, a bag of rice. You have no power to argue the valuation. The price of your labor is whatever he says it is, and almost always, the value of your pearls is just slightly less than the value of the food and water you consume that week. Your internal calculation is a constant, weary whisper. 10 more dives to pay for the water. 100 more to cover the rice for my son. The ledger's number rarely shrinks. It only grows, or, on a good week, stays the same. The invisible weight of it is heavier than any stone that pulls you to the sea floor. This is how the chain is passed from one generation to the next. Your father was a diver, and he died in debt to this same captain, or perhaps his father. That debt did not die with him. It became yours. You were born owing a debt for a life you had not yet lived. It is the reason you first went to sea as a boy, not with dreams of adventure, but with the quiet, grim understanding that you were there to pay for your father's existence. You watch your own young son playing on the shore, and you know that unless a miracle occurs, he will one day inherit your ledger. He will sail on this same boat, under this same sun, to pay for the food you are borrowing for him today. This is not just a job. It is a form of bondage, sanctioned by tradition and enforced by necessity. There is nowhere else to go, no other work to be found. Your world is the sea, the boat, and the ledger. So when the call comes to begin the season, you feel a strange mix of dread and relief. The relief comes from knowing your family will eat. The dread comes from knowing the price. You are a pearl diver, a name that sounds romantic to outsiders in distant lands who see only the lustrous gem. They imagine a life of adventure, of finding treasure in the deep blue. They do not see the sun-cracked skin, the saltwater blindness, the scarred hands, and they do not see the invisible ledger, the quiet chains of debt that pull you down deeper than any stone ever could. You do not dive for riches. You dive simply for the chance to break even, a chance that almost never comes. The ledger book, with its ink-stained pages of debt, governs your waking life. It is a book of endings, of bondage, of numbers that only ever seem to grow. But there is another ledger, one that is not written, but whispered. It is the ledger of possibility, a record of myth and miracle that lives in the hearts of every diver on this boat. It speaks of a different kind of currency, one that can erase a lifetime of debt in a single, breathtaking moment. This currency is not a coin or a bill. It is small and round and holds the light of the moon. It is the hope of finding the one perfect pearl. While the captain's ledger is a story of your past, this whispered hope is the only story you have about the future. And so you cling to it with the same desperation that you cling to the rope that pulls you from the sea. It is known as the perfect pearl, a name spoken with reverence. It is not just a large pearl. It is a flawless one, a sphere so perfectly round it seems to have been shaped by the gods themselves. It possesses a deep internal luster, a glow the merchants call the sparkle, that seems to shine from within, as if it swallowed a star. It is heavy in the hand, cool to the touch, and worth more than your life, your father's life, and your son's life combined. Most divers will never see one. Most will never even see a pearl that comes close. It is a myth, a legend, a ghost story whispered on the quiet nights at sea. But everyone knows someone, who knew someone, who saw one once. That is enough. The idea of it is more real than the debt itself, because the debt is only a cage, while the perfect pearl, that is a key. This hope is fueled by the stories you tell each other when the day's work is done. Huddled on the deck, mending your baskets under the faint light of a single lantern, the tales are retold. You speak of the diver from 2 generations ago, who found a perfect pearl so pure that he bought not only his freedom, but his own Tao. You speak of the man who vanished from the sea, not because he drowned, but because his fine was so great he could afford to walk away and never look back at the water again. These stories are the true currency of the pearling fleet. They are passed down like treasured tools, each telling reinforcing the belief that the impossible can happen, that your suffering is not pointless, that today could be the day. The stories are a balm against the salt that stings your eyes and the sun that cracks your skin. They are the only shield you have against the crushing numbers in the captain's ledger. And so, this hope transforms the most monotonous part of your day into a sacred ritual. At sunset, when the diving is done, you all gather to open the day's catch. This is not just a task, it is a lottery. Your hands, scarred and swollen, work with a practiced gentleness. You take the oyster, insert your knife with a quiet pop, and pry the shell open. You run your thumb through the slick, cool flesh inside, feeling for the telltale bump. Almost always, there is nothing. Just the empty, iridescent curve of the shell, which is tossed aside with countless others. Shell after shell, the pile of failures grows. But with every single one, for just a fraction of a second, the hope for that perfect pearl flares inside you. This could be the one. This one. or this one. The disappointment is a constant dull ache, but it is always overshadowed by the glittering possibility of the next shell in the pile. The time for waiting is over. The captain gives the signal, a sharp, understood cry that cuts through the morning heat. This is the moment your entire existence has been funneled into. You approach the edge of the dhow, your body moving with a memory older than your own. You do not think, you prepare. You take a series of deep rhythmic breaths, a controlled hyperventilation that floods your blood with the air you are about to leave behind. In and out. The sound is a low, focused hiss, a prayer made of oxygen. Your world narrows to this single act of preparation. The chatter of the other men fades away. The vastness of the sea becomes irrelevant. There is only this breath, and the next, and the one after that. Each one a small treasure hoarded for the journey into the silent world below. With a final deep inhalation that feels like you are trying to swallow the sky, you take the heavy weight stone into your hand. You pinch the carved horn of the nose clip over your nose, sealing the world of air away. Then, without hesitation, you slip over the side of the boat. The transition is immediate and absolute. The searing heat vanishes, replaced by a cool, heavy embrace. The noise of the world above is snuffed out, replaced by a profound, rushing silence, broken only by the thumping of your own heart in your ears. You do not swim, you fall. The stone pulls you down, a willing passenger on a journey to the bottom. The sunlight filters through the blue-green water, dappled and strange, growing dimmer with every foot you descend. You watch the hull of the dhow shrink above you, your only connection to the world of breath. You reach the seabed, a muted world of sand, rock, and shadow. You release the stone, its rope still held by the hauler on the boat above, and your real work begins. Your eyes scan the floor, searching for the dark, ridged shapes of the oysters. Time is your enemy now. The oxygen you hoarded is already a dwindling currency. Your movements are economical, born of 1,000 dives. You spot a cluster, glide towards it, and your protected fingers go to work, prying the stubborn shells from their rocky homes and stuffing them into the woven basket around your neck. 1, 2, 3. Your mind is a simple, focused machine. There is no room for stray thoughts, no room for fear. There is only the shell, the basket, and the rising pressure in your chest. The first protest comes from your lungs. It is not a pain, not yet, but a quiet, insistent question. A tightening. You have learned to ignore this first call. You push on, scanning for one more shell, then another. Your vision begins to narrow slightly at the edges. The thumping in your ears grows louder. This is the second warning, the one you cannot ignore. With your basket heavy with 12 shells, you tug sharply on your rope. The response from above is immediate. You are pulled upwards, away from the silent workplace, ascending back towards the light. The journey up is a desperate vertical race. You break the surface with a violent gasp, your body convulsing as your lungs rediscover the air. You cling to the side of the dhow, head thrown back, breathing in ragged, painful gulps. The relief is so profound, it is almost a form of pain itself. But there is no time for rest. The captain's eyes are on you. The ledger is waiting. You haul yourself back onto the scorching deck, empty your small catch, and the cycle begins again. By midday, the work has transformed from a focused ritual into a grinding, monotonous toil. The sun is a hammer. Your skin is raw from the salt. Your muscles scream with a deep, liquid ache. The dives become harder. The cool water offers less relief. Your lungs feel smaller, the need for air coming sooner and more urgently with each descent. It is now that your mind, weary and strained, wanders back to the invisible chains. Each oyster you pluck from the seabed feels impossibly light compared to the weight of your debt. This is the heart of the day, where endurance is tested not just in the lungs, but in the soul. In the late afternoon, desperation begins to set in. The day is waning, and your basket feels lighter than your debts demand. This is the most dangerous time. It is when you start making bargains with your own body. You tell yourself, just one more shell. You ignore the first scream from your lungs, and then the second. You push yourself deeper, staying down for one extra precious second, and then another. The pressure in your head is immense. The world becomes a blurry blue tunnel. The only thought is the basket, the debt, the hope. It is a gamble played in a matter of seconds, where the stakes are a handful of pearls against the blackness that threatens to swallow you whole. This is how divers are lost, not to sharks or sea monsters, but to the quiet, deadly arithmetic of their own hope. The final dives of the day are a testament to human will over physical reality. Your body is a vessel of pure exhaustion. Every movement is heavy, as if you are moving through wet sand. The preparation on deck is a slow, pained ritual. The descent is a surrender. The work on the bottom is a blurry, mechanical act. The ascent is a final, agonizing pull from the grave. When you collapse back onto the deck for the last time, you do not even have the energy to count your catch. You simply lie there, feeling the wood of the dhow beneath you, the setting sun on your face, and the rise and fall of your own chest. A rhythm that proves, for one more day, that you have survived. In a world owned by others, from the boat you sail on to the debt you carry, your possessions are few. They are not treasures, but extensions of your own body. 4 simple companions in your silent, underwater toil. The first is the nose clip. It is not a complex machine, just a piece of polished turtle shell or carved wood, bent into a simple clip that pinches your nostrils shut with a firm, familiar pressure. This small, sharp pain is the price of entry into the other world. It is the gatekeeper, the humble lock that seals the world of air behind you. You place an absolute and unquestioning trust in this small object. If it slips, if it fails, your lungs will betray you. It is more intimate than any jewel, a piece of survival worn on the face. Next is the weight stone. To an outsider, it is just a rock, a weight tied to a rope. To you, it is your partner in descent. It is smooth, heavy, and worn by the hands of your father and perhaps his father before you. It is not an anchor that holds you down. It is an ally that pulls you to your workplace with speed and purpose. To grasp it is to shake hands with gravity itself. It saves you precious energy and, more importantly, precious air that would be wasted on swimming down. It is a silent, swift companion on your vertical journey. A silent promise that you will reach the bottom quickly, so that your real work may begin before your breath gives out. Around your neck hangs the woven collection basket. It is a simple net, usually crafted from coir rope, rough and abrasive against your wet skin. At the start of each dive, its emptiness is a hollow question against your chest. As you work on the seabed, stuffing it with 1, then 2, then 10 sharp-edged oyster shells, its growing weight is a small, temporary answer. It is the scale that measures your hope against your exhaustion. A heavy basket at the end of a dive is a small victory, a brief feeling of accomplishment before the shells are opened and their true, often disappointing worth is revealed. This simple, scratchy net is the vessel for all your effort, the only thing that carries your hard-won labor back to the surface. Finally, you pull on the simple leather caps for your fingers and thumb. In a life without armor, these are your only shields. They are a thin, soft layer of protection against the razor edges of oyster shells, sharp rocks, and the venomous spines of hidden sea creatures. After days at sea, your hands are a raw, stinging map of your labor, etched with 100 tiny cuts. These small pieces of worn leather are a profound comfort, a small act of self-preservation in a life that offers very little. They allow you to work faster, with more confidence, saving you from the kinds of wounds that could fester and end your season, or your life. They are not a luxury. They are a necessity, the last defense for the hands that must provide. There are two forces that govern your world, more powerful than any captain or king. They are the sun and the salt. The day does not begin with a gentle dawn. It begins with an assault. The sun rises over the flat horizon of the Persian Gulf, not as a welcome friend, but as a white, hot hammer. From the moment it appears, there is no escape. There is no shade on the open water, save for the single narrow shadow cast by the boat's sail, a sliver of respite that is jealously guarded and rarely won. The heat is a physical weight. It presses down on your shoulders, cooks the wooden deck until it is too hot to touch with bare feet, and drains the strength from your limbs before the first dive has even begun. This is a world bleached of color, where the sky is a pale, hazy white, and the sea is a shimmering, blinding mirror. The glare is a constant enemy. You spend your day squinting, your eyes narrowed to slits against the relentless reflection of the sun off the water's surface. By midday, a dull, throbbing headache settles behind your eyes, a permanent companion for the season. You see spots in your vision, dark phantoms that dance on the shimmering waves. Sometimes the glare is so intense, it feels as though the sea and sky have merged into a single painful wall of light. It makes it hard to see the faces of the other men, hard to judge the distance to the horizon. It isolates you in a world of blinding white, where the only thing that feels real is the scorching heat on your back and the deep, abiding thirst in your throat. The sea itself is a deceptive comfort. The plunge into the water is a moment of shocking, blessed relief from the furnace above. For a few wonderful seconds, the coolness soothes your skin and quiets the pounding in your head. But the relief is a lie. The sea is not your friend. It is your workplace, and it is just as hostile as the sun. It is a world of immense crushing pressure that seeks to squeeze the very air from your lungs. It is a world of silence that deafens you, and it holds its own dangers, not just in the creatures that lurk in the depths, but in its very nature. It is a temporary escape that you must always, always leave, gasping your way back into the equally hostile world of the sun. And the sea never truly lets you go. When you climb back onto the dhow, you are coated in its essence, salt. As the water evaporates under the relentless sun, it leaves behind a fine, white crust on your skin, in your hair, and on your thin clothes. This crust is a constant source of torment. It makes your skin feel tight and itchy. It finds every small cut and scrape on your hands and feet and sets them on fire with a sharp, persistent sting. Your clothes, never truly dry, become stiff and abrasive, rubbing your skin raw. You live in a state of perpetual dampness and grit. The salt is in your eyes, blurring your vision. It is on your lips, a taste you can never escape. You are pickled in your own labor. Your entire world is this small floating prison. The dhow's deck is the anvil. The sun is the hammer, and you are the metal being beaten between them. The wood is splintery under your feet. The constant, gentle rocking of the waves offers no solace. On the hottest, calmest days, it is just enough to create a subtle, lingering nausea. There is nowhere to walk, nowhere to hide. You are surrounded by an infinity of blue water and white sky. For months on end, this is your reality. A reality of thirst, of blinding light, of aching muscles, and of the inescapable, irritating crust of salt that reminds you with every itch that you belong neither to the land nor the sea, but to the harsh, unforgiving space in between. And so, we leave the diver to his exhausted rest on the rocking dhow, his world defined by the open sea and the blinding sun. But his story of quiet resilience is just one of many. In other corners of the world, in different times, the struggle for survival takes other forms. Sometimes the prison is not an endless ocean, but 4 cold stone walls. And sometimes the most valuable treasure is not a pearl pulled from the depths, but a single word protected from the darkness. Your world is no longer one of sun and salt, but of stone and silence. You are a monk, and your universe has shrunk to the size of a single room, the scriptorium. The air here is always cool, carrying the faint, sweet smell of aging parchment and the sharp, earthy scent of oak gall ink. There is no sound but the gentle, rhythmic scratch of a quill on vellum, the soft rustle of a turning page, and the distant, muffled echo of a monastery bell calling your brothers to prayer. Your work is not with your body, but with your hands and your eyes. For 8 hours a day, you sit on a hard wooden bench, hunched over a slanted desk. Your task is simple to state, but monumental to perform. You must copy a book, not just a page, but the entire volume, letter by painstaking letter. The page before you is not paper. It is vellum, a sheet of carefully prepared calfskin, scraped, stretched, and smoothed, until it is a pale, creamy surface with an almost living texture. It is a precious material. The creation of a single book can require the hides of an entire herd of cattle. A single mistake, a drop of ink, a moment of lapsed concentration can ruin a piece that took weeks of labor to prepare. Your ink is not from a bottle. It is a substance you helped mix yourself, a dark permanent stain made from crushed oak galls, iron salts, and gum arabic, boiled and fermented over days. Your pen is not a pen. It is a quill, a flight feather from a goose, which you have sharpened to a perfect fine point with your own small knife. Every tool you use is handmade, fragile, and essential. This is not a world of disposable things. This is a world where every object, every word, has weight and purpose. The work begins. Your eyes move from the source manuscript, an older, perhaps crumbling book propped beside you, to your own clean page. It is a tiny, silent journey repeated thousands upon thousands of time. You dip your quill into the inkwell, a small pot of horn or ceramic, drawing just enough ink to fill the nib without creating a blot. Then, with a focused stillness that you have cultivated over years of discipline, your hand begins to move across the vellum. You are not writing, you are drawing. Each letter is a small work of art, formed with a precise and practiced stroke, a beautiful and consistent script learned from your master. The capital letters might be left empty, spaces for a more skilled illuminator to later fill with crushed lapis lazuli and shimmering gold leaf. But your job is the foundation, the endless, neat rows of black text. Hours pass, and the only movement is the slow creep of shadows across the stone floor. There is no conversation in the scriptorium. The rule of silence is absolute. It is a silence that sharpens the senses. You become aware of the subtle change in the light as a cloud passes overhead. You notice the faint scent of beeswax from a distant candle. You hear the almost inaudible sigh of the brother sitting at the desk next to you, his own back aching in sympathy with yours. This quiet work has its own physical price. After hours on the hard bench, a deep, persistent ache settles into the muscles of your back and shoulders. Your fingers cramp around the quill, a silent protest against the constant, focused tension. Your neck grows stiff from being held in one position for so long. As the sun begins its slow descent outside the high, narrow window, the light in the scriptorium fades. Now, you work by the flickering, unreliable glow of a single tallow candle. The flame dances, casting long, wavering shadows that make the letters on the page seem to move and swim. Your eyes strain to distinguish the faint lines on the page, and a burning sensation begins to grow behind them. The cold from the stone floor, a constant presence, seeps up through your simple wooden sandals and into your bones. It is a quiet, creeping cold, very different from the diver's sharp plunge, but just as relentless and wearying. Yet you do not stop. Your work is a race against the dying light, a duty that does not end simply because your body wishes it would. In this deep, focused silence, your mind can sometimes drift. You think about the words you are copying. Perhaps it is a passage from the Gospels, a philosophical treatise by a church father, or a history of the saints. You consider the meaning, the weight of the ideas passing through your fingers and onto the page. You are not simply a machine for duplication. You are a vessel for knowledge. You feel a profound connection to the scribe who wrote the original manuscript you are copying. Perhaps a man who sat in a similar cold room 100 years before you, feeling the same ache in his back, the same strain in his eyes. You are part of an unbroken chain. There are moments of small, quiet satisfaction, a perfectly formed letter, a line of text that flows with grace and precision, a page completed without a single error. These are the victories of your world, triumphs that no one else may ever see or acknowledge, but they bring a deep, internal sense of peace and purpose. And there are moments of frustration, a sudden sneeze that sends a spray of ink across a nearly finished page, a quill that splits unexpectedly, creating a thick, ugly blotch. In these moments, you must take a slow breath, calm your frustration, and begin the painstaking process of gently scraping the error away with a sharp blade, a delicate surgery that risks tearing the precious vellum. You may never know who reads the book you are creating. It may sit on a shelf in this monastery's library for 100 years, untouched and unread. It may be borrowed by a scholar from a distant land, or studied by a future king. It might even be lost in a fire, or stolen in a raid. That is not the point. Your work is an act of faith. You are not just copying words. You are a guardian, a quiet soldier fighting against the slow, creeping darkness of ignorance and the decay of time. You are a single, small link in a vast, invisible chain stretching across generations, preserving the word of God, the wisdom of the ancients, and the stories of humanity. Finally, the bell tolls for Vespers, the evening prayer. The abbot gives the signal to put down your quills. You carefully clean your pen, cap your inkwell, and gently cover your work with a clean cloth to protect it from the dust and the damp night air. As you stand, your back groans in protest. You stretch your cramped fingers, feeling the blood return to them. You walk out of the scriptorium and into the fading light of the cloister, your eyes blinking, adjusting to the wider world again. You have not pulled a pearl from the sea, but you have pulled a page from the past and pushed it toward the future. This book will outlive you. It will outlive everyone in this monastery. This knowledge is your contribution to eternity. And so, in the deep silence of the chapel, you give thanks and prepare to do it all again tomorrow. And so, we leave the quiet scribe to his sacred work, a guardian of knowledge in a world of stone and silence. Our journey now returns one last time to where it began, back to the warm, dark waters of the Persian Gulf, where the moon is a silver coin in the black sky, and the stars are scattered like a careless handful of salt. The Tao rocks gently on the tide, a cradle of wood on an endless sea. The day's hard labor is done. The debates of the mind are quiet. There is only the here and now. The diver and the scribe, though worlds apart, lived lives of quiet resilience. One fought the sea and the sun, his hands raw from rope and shell. The other fought the cold stone and the fading light, his back aching from his hunched devotion. One hoped for a single pearl to buy his freedom in this life. The other hoped for a finished page to grant a piece of knowledge immortality in the next. Both found purpose not in comfort, but in endurance. Both understood that some work is a prayer said with the body. And now, like the scribe, the diver's work is done for the day. You lie on the deck of the Tao, feeling the rough, familiar texture of the wood beneath you. The aches in your back and the sting of the salt have faded into a dull, heavy weariness that calls you towards rest. The only sounds are the soft lapping of the waves against the hull, the gentle creak of the boat's timbers, and the low, rhythmic breathing of the other sleeping men around you. You do not dream of pearls tonight. Those hopes are for the waking world. In sleep, your mind seeks simpler treasures, the taste of fresh water, the sound of your child's laughter, the deep, profound peace of simply being still. And now, it is time for your own journey to end, not in struggle, but in rest. Let the gentle rocking of the boat soothe your mind. Let each quiet wave that laps against the wood carry away a single thought, a worry, a plan for tomorrow. There is nothing left to do, nothing to solve. You have heard the stories, and now you can let them go. There is only the soft darkness around you, the gentle, rhythmic motion, and the quiet, heavy feeling of sleep waiting to embrace you. Rest now. Let go. Sleep.